Hi, boys and girls. I have been hanging out occasionally with a person from another part of the world. Our friends' reactions to the United States politics and such. For example, everyone is making so much noise and getting so emotionally hyped up about the laws of abortion in the crazy, wicked world around us when we are actually a family and a population that has a president and a governor and a king that is completely outside the laws of this world, or actually higher and more beautiful than those laws. Our operations are to gather in the pregnant woman and the suffering person into our own homes, into our own lives, and wrangling with the legislations of the wicked government that the worldly governments. I mean, they're in place to create some guidelines to keep humans from insanely killing each other. But as far as to deliver heavenly morality, it's impossible to expect a government to deliver heavenly morality into every single family in life. That's ridiculous. And it was not part of the early disciple walk. The first 300 years of Christianity was an atmosphere where, when Nero was slaughtering Christians and saying that they are the biggest problem, the biggest scourge to the Roman Empire, the Christians were crying with broken hearts for him, that his heart would be flipped over and transformed, and he would become a friend of God, just like thousands of others that they had seen it happen to. They were mercifully praying for the guy, and they didn't slander him, and they didn't spend a whole lot of time, worrying about what he's doing or what he's not doing. They were more concerned about the actual human souls who could befriend God or not. So, things to be concerned about. This is a lovely little piece of Rodney Howard-Browne, the summer camp meeting, which was 4 years ago. Man, time's going fast. And I was actually able to ask him a couple of questions, but in this session. But in this session, he actually outlines a question. He's talking about the powers that be, the banking powers, the powers in the world, in the one world government, and how the presidency is staged. There's all of these staged activities to cause human beings to get all in a panic about certain things. And I tell you the truth, it would be so easy for, an overt power to go into South America and Central America and get a team of migrating people to come up to the Mexico border just to make all the Americans worried and to punctuate, one little political issue, while there's amazingly dark things going on behind the scenes. The news that people get emotional about is generally a smokescreen to more important news that's being hidden. If the powers that be in this world are able to fly over homes and through laser weapons completely incinerate homes with people in them and cars with people in them, and if the powers that be are able to actually herd people coming out of hurricane zones into camps and atmospheres and cause those people to just kind of disappear, if the population reduction is actually going on right inside of our borders, that's really kind of a more important issue than a terrified woman who's trying to figure out whether she should just be befriended by somebody or have a surgical move to the baby. I mean, the whole abortion issue is really important, but we are called to go to individual people who have gotten close to our lives and love them like nobody's business, like amazingly love them. So you should be concerned about these things. This is a really succinct, lovely description of what's going on in the world and how you heart on political issues and legislation.
Then you understand everything. It's called The Creature from Jekyll Island.
Whoops.
Okay, that's the first book.
Too far. Sorry, folks. Okay. Oh man, this baby's gonna stall. Don't stall on me. There we go.
The highest political office in that county. No one overrides him. And when a sheriff says, I don't care what anybody says, I'm standing by the Constitution, that's what you need to question your elected officials if they're going to bow their knee or they're going to go with the Constitution of the United States.
And actually, he was describing that we should all go and connect directly with the county officials that in the state of whatever military emergency or a state of being overpowered by the government, we actually know personally the chief of police, the chief of the fire department, the sheriff, the head sheriff, et cetera, meet them personally and ask them, if people are actually going to be carted away, are you going to accept that stuff? Cause them to actually know you personally and bring them cookies and care about them, because they are actually the closest and most powerful people to you right now. Chuck.
Are vegans healthy?
What the heck?
Are vegetarians healthy? French fries and beer are vegan, so you tell.
So you can start with that immediately to locate where you are. In your county, go meet the sheriff, say, I'd like to talk to you. I need to ask you a question. The Second Amendment is very important in the Constitution. Do you agree? You swore to uphold the Constitution? Yes. Okay. In a scenario with a directive coming from the White House to disarm the American people, will you do it? And then if he says, well, I'll have to obey, then you know you're in trouble in your area. You better pray another sheriff in there and believe God. Anyway, any other questions? Yes, right over here. Is it okay that we do this?
It seems like there's no sovereignty in any of these nations anymore. Being in the Philippines, I heard that there's going to be a unifying of Asian economic markets.
Okay, so that's one. So the whole of Europe being unified, the whole of Africa being unified, the whole of Central and South America, and then Mexico, Canada, and America unified, and then the whole of Asia. So they got these different areas. Then they want to bring defense forces from these different areas. And then it all melts into one government. So that's where the whole thing's happening. That's why you see the destruction of nation states as it's happening in Europe, which is quite crazy, because when you have the Olympic Games, what's it all about? You're representing your nation. So on the one side, they herald, the World Cup soccer with all the nations playing, the Olympic Games with all the nations participating. But in reality, they want to destroy all that. But I feel there needs to be the different nationalities, the different languages, the different songs, and the different cultures. That's what makes the world the world. It would be terrible if we all were just the same. It would be terrible if it was just only restaurant in the world was McDonald's. It would be just terrible. You know what I'm saying? So, no, there's an attack on national sovereignty. There's an attack on the sovereignty of the United States. Anybody else? Right back there.
Hello, how are you? There's a lot of amazing information, but do you have like recommendations of things that we can read, things that we can follow up on when we go home after camp meeting?
Okay,
well, the first book you need to get
your pen out.
Explain the money system to you.
Get your pen out. He hits 3 books. They are absolutely powerful and essential. It gives you total perspective on the fact that the money powers are running this world above kings and presidents.
It comes out of the money. Once you understand this, then you understand everything. It's called The Creature from Jekyll Island. Okay, that's the first book. The second book is called The Tower of Basel, B-A-S-E-L, which is about the International Bank of Settlements. And the book is by Adam Labor, and it's called The Secret Bank That Runs the World. And then the third book you can get is a book called The Bilderberg Group. How many know about the Bilderberg Group? All right, so they've been meeting since the 50s, and it's 120 to 140 of the top people in the world, and they basically decide what's going to happen. So, the Rothschilds' wealth at one time was 500 trillion, and I believe at this point they own half of the planet. Half of the world is owned by them. So they bring kings up, they bring them down. They'll tell you who's going to be president. They'll tell you what's going to happen. This is all done behind closed doors. So trust me.
They bring kings up, they bring kings down, they tell you who's going to be president.
Next American president is already chosen. They already know who he's going to be. And they have a backup in place if he's not. And they have a backup vice president. It's all rigged. The whole thing is rigged. When Reagan came,
The whole thing is rigged. Count on it. Get your focus on the things of the refreshing kingdom of God and the need of souls.
out of the blue, how many know Reagan came out of the blue? They put George Bush Sr., who was the head of the CIA, and the Bush family that have ties right into the Saudi royal family. The whole Bush family, it's corrupt to the core. I know that'll be hard for some people to believe, but unfortunately, how many know about Bohemian Grove, where they go worship an owl? they all fly in the summer months and worship an owl. Who's heard of Bohemian Grove? Go study it out. They go worship an owl. They pray to an owl, and they cremate a baby in effigy. I'm not making this up. Bohemian Grove. This was quite funny. Well, not funny, but when I was in DC, they brought me this little lady. She's 94 years old.
Your wonderful presidents, who you have properly prayed for, have engaged in things that are so dark and wicked, and have connected with people who have powers far beyond the little voice of the American public. It is important for you to extract your mind from all of the emotional circus of the political stuff and the legislative stuff, so you can get down to bringing your friends and family close together in joyful honesty and freedom and open-heartedness before Mashiach, before Jesus, and taste the body and the blood and be refreshed and go back out into this crazy world and love on people before we're incinerated.
A lady by the name of Ruth Mazel. And she worked.
This is a funny story. This great lady in Washington, D.C. is carting Rodney around.
The Bushes. She was in the White House and everything. She ran Bush Sr.'s campaign in the 60s. So her husband was a congressman. She's on a walker. But when I go to the Capitol, she walks right in, goes anywhere she wants to. Everybody says, yes, ma'am, yes. Nobody questions her. There was a problem with the car being parked. She said, you tell them Ruth Mazel said, let that car in. Yes, ma'am. And she goes anywhere she wants to. She took me beyond barriers and punched a code in the door and took me into a chapel right in the Capitol. This woman is amazing. So we're sitting there, so I thought, okay, I better just shut my mouth now. Don't say anything about the Bushes. Just be quiet now. You don't want to offend a little nice old lady. I'm sitting there. So she says, the Bushes. So I said, yeah. She said, wicked people. I said, Ruth. Because I already knew the story. I said, Ruth, what are you telling me? She said, they worship an owl. And then she told me, she said, the Bushes and the Clintons are family friends, and they have been for years. The Clinton would go and stay in Kennebunkport at the house. This is a whole scam on the American people, and American people can't even see it. So the way to see the scam is when Mandela died, Air Force One is on.
The dark side wants you to get hyped up against Obama and for this one and for that one and get all kinds of emotional stuff going on when it actually means practically nothing. There is such thing as fighting for justice, and there is such thing as raising popular awareness for injustices. But if you think, if you're spending time declaring that, God put this certain position in the presidency, well, then you have to declare that God put Judas Iscariot into the 12 apostles as well. Everything is from God's hand. Every single circumstance comes only with God's allowance. Do a search on Ahab, Jehoshaphat, and Micaiah, prophet Micaiah. When God wants to get rid of bad guy Ahab, bad guy Ahab, he says to all these unclean spirits that are coming up against him, he says, who will put an end to this Ahab? God does not create evil, but he allows it to move for his purposes. It's just so ridiculously painful to see mobs, thousands and thousands. I look at all of these Facebook post comments where people are so hyped up about the legislature of abortion. And this friend of ours from another country is saying, this is ridiculous. There's been these outrageous, allowances of abortion in my country for ages. And that actually heightens your responsibility as a disciple of Yeshua. And the disciples there are not trying to like hammer into the government and change a legislation. Their responsibility is more to actually act on the family level, as it always was from the beginning. So here's
going to Mandela's funeral. Who's on board? The Bushes, the Clintons, and the Obamas. What? How? It's a club. Welcome to the club, past president. Welcome to the club. Come on. Can't the American people see the scam? Or do you still believe that there's actually is a difference? There's no difference between Republican and Democrat. It's all the same. It's just the two dogs are fighting and everybody's voting, thinking they're getting somewhere, but the system is still in place and they're laughing behind closed doors. And the people are no better off. And all the promises that they promised in the election are all just promises to get the vote. But they can't do anything, even if they thought they could, because the moment they get into office, the system will resist them.
The moment they get into office, the system will resist them. The same destruction of individual personal freedoms has been going on through a series of presidencies punctuated with the beginning at 9/11. There has been no rescinding of the ability to actually arrest a person in their home without obvious cause, saying you are an enemy of the United States government, and that person can disappear and never be seen or heard from again. That is legal. It's totally legal. There's no way to battle it in court. We have had our general personal rights removed through the last series of presidencies, and they pop up all of these little political issues and legislations to get people all hyped up, while behind the scenes, everything is being shifted towards one world government. And it's no big deal. I mean, our job, our life as disciples of Yeshua are being misunderstood, rejected, condemned, slandered, beaten, thrown out, and tortured and killed. That's the crown of our faith. So if we're all worried about what's going to happen in our nice, safe American country, our minds are actually brainwashed into thinking that somehow we can save our comforts through our patriotism and our political actions. And I mean, I am not saying that there's no reason for political activity or for public outcry. I am not saying that, but I'm saying that when I see the emotions of people who are supposed to be friends with heaven itself, which is an enemy of the whole world and even the most lovely things in this world, it just makes me sick. So there's Rodney Howard-Browne. And for reference, if you want to see this thing yourself, 2015-01-26, Monday AM, WCM. Here, you can write that down. That is the video. And at the end of the video, I actually ask him a question. I said to him, I know about all these wicked things in the world. I'm more concerned about the undermining of the stuff in the church that Yeshua taught. And I'm looking at these drug addicts dying because they are not brought into the Holy of Holies, which is an honesty time with the meal of the body and blood of Yeshua as the new Holy of Holies, as the new covenant. And he barely addressed my request because he, like I was, used to operating in the congregational setting without very much focus on the family, the home setting. Now, that's number one thing to be concerned about. Here's another. Right here, right there. Let's see if we can catch this. This is about what we call chemtrails. This guy, Dane Wigington, is a person in Northern California who is very wise in started studying the stuff that's coming down from the planes, and he has an extremely concise, precise description, scientific description of what is actually going on and is being perpetrated on us by the United States government and the one world power money banking system, which is more powerful than the mere world government. Check out what this guy has to say. And this fella he calls himself John X Army, and he's just doing a lot of information sharing, and he's a very humble, kind of focused guy. I like it.
It's good to search on the search engine or DuckDuckGo, because Google has done their best to completely ghost ban everything on our site, including taking, as I told you off the air, I think our geoengineeringwatch.org is now gone from a search of the term geoengineering. We were the top of the first page because we had 32 million visitors. They've completely taken us off all their pages, all 20. Search DuckDuckGo or Bing. But if
okay, now this guy keeps repeating geoengineering, climate engineering, not chemtrails. Geoengineering of this planet is actually what's going on. Engineering of weather is one of the primary issues.
If they search any article subject on this issue, they can, if they search geoengineeringwatch.org, engineering cooldowns or any subject like that, they can find our articles on those sites. But again, back to the weather scenario itself, the document we found, if they search geoengineeringwatch.org, was leading up to massive Senate document, 800 pages long, and back to the question of any weather being natural, because you can't affect any part of the system without affecting the whole system. In that document, it specifically calls for the cooperation of otherwise opposing governments, i.e. China, US, Russia, on this issue because of the, quote, listen to this term, cross-border ramifications. It means when you're geoengineering over your country, it affects everybody down the line.
So this guy is describing how the entire world's weather is being operated on by powers that are far beyond little government and little people understanding. Then it's being completely kept hidden.
Is there any natural weather? No.
Wow, that's mind blowing, because my subscribers from literally around the world, a lot of them in EU, Ireland.
On this issue, because of the, quote, listen to this term, cross-border ramifications. It means when you're geoengineering over your country, it affects everybody down the line. So, is there any natural weather? No.
Wow, that's mind blowing, because my subscribers from literally around the world, a lot of them in EU, Ireland, Australia, it's everywhere. It's every country that they're spraying in. Another question is, this is a great one. Hold on, where'd it go? He said, do you have a plan to help combat this, to help spark change, to stop it? Is there a plan of action at this point?
Yes, we're exercising many plans of action, but I want to state this. We've already filed a lawsuit in Canada that's ongoing. We've already filed legal action in the US. We're suing our attorneys. Geoengineering has a legal team. We're suing the US Department of Commerce. Why would we sue the US Department of Commerce? Because they're the overseeing agency for NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. We're suing NOAA because NOAA was not releasing their Freedom of Information Act requests to us. When our attorneys submitted those, our first response was this. NOAA basically, in about 3 or 4 sentences, said, we don't know anything about any type of weather modification anywhere, ever.
Wow.
I mean, consider what an absurd statement that is when NOAA is required to sign off on about 300 plus state and regional weather modification programs in the country every single year. And they had the audacity to tell us they don't know anything about any of this. When we sued them, then we got some of our FOIAs back. And here's I'll get back to the plan in a moment, but here's what some of our freedom of.
So the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association in America is responsible to release all information about weather has actually been engaged in geoengineering, weather modification reports that go to news agencies that you look at on the television. They actually have to relay the weather control stuff that's going on to the news weather people. And then they're saying, oh, we don't know anything at all about any sort of weather engineering, like in a courtroom. NOAA itself, they're representatives. It's like really scary.
Information Act requests have already exposed to us that the so-called weather forecasts that the local meteorologists are giving are simply a script. That forecast is passed down from the very top, and the very top in this case is Raytheon, private defense contractor Raytheon, that does all the weather modeling for the National Weather Service and NOAA. So you have the geoengineers, which Raytheon is, patent holder and active geoengineering participant. They're the foxes running the henhouse. They have to pass down the quote-unquote forecast because, in fact, it's the scheduled weather. That's why the local meteorologists who are reading scripts, again, we know this. I'm not speculating.
Yeah.
And I don't want anybody on anything I say, by the way, don't believe anything I say. Please don't believe me. Please investigate the data that's posted on our site. So
that is one of the greatest statements that anyone can make in a debate. I love to say the same thing. Look, it looks like Jesus of Nazareth is God. I'm sorry. It really looks like he is God. It looks like he was predicted for thousands of years. It looks like he was a public figure that was then seen alive after a public execution for 40 days. It looks like he may have come back from the dead. That's the rumor. And the rumor is he walked into town. He healed the entire hospital until everybody was freaking out and dragging hurt and crippled people to him. And the rumor is that he actually continues to put his supernatural powers on very ordinary, unenlightened human beings. That seems to be the rumor about Jesus of Nazareth. You might want to play around with his writings and teachings and look at them, because he may be the only trustworthy person over there in the spirit realm that you can interact with. That might sound nuts, but you should do your own research. Don't trust me. There's a lot of goofy stuff going on in Christianity and religion. I love to make that same point. Look, please tear my theories up. Let's tear up the things I'm laying down and figure it out for yourself. Challenge what I have to say, because what I have to say is very important information, and this guy has the same attitude.
We have the local meteorologists reading scripts, and that's how they know days in advance that it's going to be, quote, mostly sunny. We hear that so often, mostly sunny, where there's not a natural cloud in the sky. It's all jet aircraft aerosol dispersions. Now, many would ask, well, why aren't some of the meteorologists speaking out? Why aren't NOAA scientists speaking out, or National Weather Service? Because there's an illegal federal gag order on all of them. Not only do they have no First Amendment protection, but there's an illegal federal gag order. So for those, all the disinformation sites, Jonathan, and sources that would try to have us believe that nothing's true except the official narrative. If you don't believe the official narrative, you must be in need of some sort of psychiatric help.
Okay, this is the heaviest thing in America. The official narrative, the thing that you're supposed to be worried about, is abortion and this wall that goes up along the Mexico border. What if the wall ends up being a way of actually preventing Americans from escaping one of the widest, easier to transverse borders when there's serious martial law being declared? What if the law is actually to round up Americans and do trouble to them rather than to keep others out? There's a lot of things that can happen with a heavily defended border. You can actually reduce the population if you wanted to. So the point is, the official narrative is creating what the emotional state of the human beings in the country who follow along with emotional things like lemmings, just like in Nazi Germany. so many nice, reasonable, decent people felt that they were just doing right by supporting this regime, and they were brainwashed by their peer group. They knew that some things didn't really seem right, but, you know, I mean, how could everybody be deceived? So there is a gag order. In other words, the United States government is telling various systems and, agencies to literally lie to the American public. That is a command from the higher up in the government to lie to the American public about really serious stuff, like firestorms and what happens in them and how they happen.
That's their job, to try to marginalize people with that sort of stigmatizing, while never referring to the science terms, while never citing the science facts, while never bringing up issues like, oh, by the way, there's an illegal federal gag order on all the National Weather Service and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric scientists. Why in the world would you gag the weathermen if you didn't have something very, very big to hide?
Yeah, and also that's just like those YouTube compilation videos.
Okay, he mentioned marginalizing people who have a questioning voice. Now, John the Baptist was marginalized by the people, or actually by the Pharisees and the nice religious leaders. John the Baptist was marginalized and said, oh, he has a demon. Oh, he's bipolar. Oh, he's, he's kind of a little bit off base. See, he's nutty. He lives out there and wears weird clothes and eats locusts and wild honey. So they can marginalize, they can actually brush away his character through using a few terms. Oh, well, that person's into conspiracy theories and all that kind of stuff. And I don't watch any of that stuff. I mean, we need to defend this country, but let's not go nuts about it. If you think the American government is actually willing to let their own people have bad things happen to them, well, I can't agree with that. And, they'll call a person nuts who has a thought of such a thing. So just like they marginalized Jesus because he hung out with a lot of rough characters, like, oh, don't talk to him. See the people that he hangs out with. Hey, he's not anybody that you should listen to. Just shut down, stay away from him. And if you had any interaction with him and you were a teacher in the synagogue, you would be barred from the synagogue. You were not allowed to think as he thought. You were not allowed to get near him. You were not allowed to be seen near him. If you were seen near him, you would be barred from your job as a teacher, and that's keeping your family fed. This is serious. The same kind of serious fight is always going on. It's a raging, emotionally painful fight where people who are your friends and family literally are against you. They are against you. They're calling you nuts for being a conspiracy theorist when there's empirical proof on the table that there's rough stuff going on. Be concerned.
Where every reporter around the country says the same exact sentence. Have you seen those on YouTube?
Absolutely scripted. You're exactly right.
That's what it reminded me of when you said it comes down to the meteorologist.
Total scripts. And back to the plan again, for everybody listening, I want to state this, that even our legal efforts are ultimately about critical mass of awareness. I cannot state that term strongly enough. We cannot win.
Critical mass of awareness. Now, even Trump's fake news commentary is like in the atmosphere that is creating fake news, and like the, what's the term they use? Official narrative. They're making an official narrative that's really the real thing from the White House, and they're accusing others of making fake news. That is one of the best ways of getting people hyped up to actually do the wicked thing that you're accusing others of doing, but you're just getting people hyped up to accuse others, and they're going to get on your side because they are adversarial. They are more willing to say, oh, I don't like that. Oh, I don't believe that. Oh, that's a wrong way of looking at things. If a person is more quick to become adversarial rather than curious. Oh, do you have a different perspective? Oh, did you find something else in research? The questions, the questions, the questions, the questions, the questions, the questions. That proves that a person cares. When a person is quick to make an evaluation and say, oh,